just staggering what we've seen over the past 4 years. I read and reread Joan Didion a lot these days as she was coming to terms with the radicalism of the 1960s, feeling like she lived in a country that she no longer understood. And I just thought, how remarkable it was that when I was a small child, my family was scared, and I think most of Middle America was scared by a lot of the radical changes they saw in a country they didn't recognize anymore. And here we are 50 years later, and a lot of Americans are scared again. And let me, if you don't mind, let me read this as I saw some of the scenes out of Valdosta. Joan Didion, after seeing what was happening in Haight-Ashbury in 1967. It was the first time I dealt directly and flatly with the evidence of atomization, the proof that all things fall apart. I was paralyzed by the conviction that the world as I had understood it no longer existed. It was the trail of intention gone haywire. And she, in Slouching Towards Bethlehem, she also talks about the hemorrhaging. She says, it was not a country in open revolution. It was not a country under enemy siege. It was the United States of America. And the market was steady. The GDP was high. And it might have been a spring of brave hopes and natural promise, but it was not. And more people had the uneasy apprehension that it was not. All that seemed clear was that at some point we had aborted ourselves and butchered the job. And so I went to San Francisco. San Francisco was where the social hemorrhaging was showing up, was where the missing children were gathering, was where they were calling themselves hippies. And Reverend Al, here we are now from Haight-Ashbury in 1967, and Joan Didion talking about a world going haywire. And we fast forward to 2020, and it's Valdosta, Georgia. And it's people living in another world, a people just like the hippies that Joan Didion was describing in 1967, that were trying to create an alternate reality. And how absolutely bizarre that this is where conservatism ended in response to the craziness of the 1960s. And it is, by the way. I was there every step of the way. I was there in the Baptist church every step of the way. I was there in the conservative movement every step of the way. I was there in white suburbia every step of the way. I represented it every step of the way. I've been living in Northwest Florida every step of the way, and living in suburban communities every step of the way, where people were pushing back against the radicalism of the 1960s. And as Joan Didion said, it was an intention, it was a trail that had gone haywire. And you look at what happened this weekend as a representative of everything we've seen over the past 4 years. And this is the mirrored reflection of Haight-Ashbury in 1967, except the radicals who were trying to tear down the institutions, the radicals who are trying to undermine America, that are trying to create an alternate reality now, are Donald Trump and his so-called conservative followers.
No doubt about it. I think what Didion describes, and I lived in that era as well on the other side as a young black activist clergyman. But the difference, I think, in this kind of move and kind of disregard and bringing down of institutions is it is being led by the President of the United States and those that are in charge of those institutions. There is a huge difference. same kind of move, but a huge difference when you have people that go to Haight-Ashbury or other places that drop out or try to redefine what society is and is not. And in those that are in charge of those institutions and societies that decide that they're going to in some way change how those institutions that they are in charge of and that under the rules became in charge of that. We're going to change the rules now. This is not being led by a hippie smoking some marijuana on a mountainside in California or dropping LSD with Timothy Leary. This is the president of the United States walking around with the football.
But Rev, I completely understand. I'm talking, though, about the masses of people that my parents would look at the TV set in 1967, and they would look at the people, and they would say, who are these people? What are they doing? Where did they come from? And now we understand and know, you and I, better than most, understand and know who Donald Trump is, but we look at all of those people in the crowd who are following an authoritarian, who are following a fascist leader, who want to overturn democratically elected results. And I'm asking the same question of them. No moral equivocation between someone dropping acid in Haight-Ashbury in 1967 and the President of the United States trying to turn this into an authoritarian country. None whatsoever. But we're talking about a sick society and a large part of that society who have lost their way. And you look in those crowds in Valdosta, and that's what frightens me. It's not Donald Trump. It frightens me that those people hate democracy so much. Those people have been so swayed by a fascist leader that they now are actively calling for the overturning of millions and millions of votes.
And will risk getting sick.
And at the risk of getting sick,
and what, in effect, is a coup.
And